Sometimes more than others, the crozier truly is the bishop's friend. I want to thank you all so very much, and through you the whole diocese, for the many, many prayers that were so generously offered up for me and that are being offered up after I had the misfortune of a bad spill during the bishop's meeting in Baltimore. The misfortune of that fall was particularly profound because I was with another bishop and two priests on the way to the best Italian restaurant in Baltimore. So on top of everything else, a very good meal was missed. But I did take quite the spill, and I'm mending very well, thanks be to God and to your prayers. Still have some bruising in the right knee that's being healed, but especially when I have the help of this trusty crozier, not only can I get around, but I could even defend myself if I had to. So there we have it, but thank you so much from the heart for the prayers. When you're hospitalized for a few days, you have extra time to think and to pray. Wasn't the first time for me, so in a sense I had been there and done that. But there's always a new opportunity, there's a new call from the Lord. When things like this happen, the Lord upsets your ordinary schedule. He cancels your previously made plans, and you sit. If not in the bed, then in the chair, and if not in the chair, then in the bed. And you sit and you sit and you sit. But there's a wonderful opportunity there and a call to think and to pray. And I found myself, of course, naturally thinking about Advent, thinking about the coming of Christ at Christmas, thinking more honestly about his second coming in glory, thinking about the meaning of Advent as waiting. Advent as waiting. And I asked myself, what was my most powerful human experience of waiting? And I couldn't believe how long ago it was. It was when I was 5 or 6 years old, waiting every day for my dad to come home from work. And I would go out of the house and onto the sidewalk in front of our home, and I would turn to the right, and I would stand there and wait, because a half a block away there was a Slovak church in the good old ethnic Scranton days. There was a Slovak church there, and when my dad came home, he would pass that church and make a right turn onto our street. So waiting for Dad meant looking in the direction of that church, waiting for him to turn the corner. And the moment he turned the corner, it was good. It was as good as his first hug when he got out of the car. So happy was I to see him. And it's that kind of waiting to which we are called during Advent. And the first and the third readings make that very clear. The prophet says, look to the east. From there, all your children will come gathered. Meaning the children, the saints, of the new and heavenly Jerusalem. It would have made no sense for me to go outside the house and look down the street that way, because Dad wasn't coming there. My grandfather used to come home that way, and if I waited for him, I'd look down the street. But when Dad was coming home, I'd look up the street. And the essence of waiting is waiting with your whole heart and soul. You're turned in the direction of what it is that you're waiting for. And that gives your waiting a sure and a certain hope. A beautiful hope. Prophet says, look to the east. Look toward heaven. Look toward the heavenly Jerusalem. And John the Baptist repeats the prophet in another place, saying, every valley will be lifted up, and every mountain will be leveled, and a straight way will be made to heaven, so that all flesh will see the salvation of God. Our Advent waiting is a full, intense, directed waiting. Just as I looked for Dad up the street to make that turn around the church, so too we are looking to the east. Notice in that gospel reading, Luke is very specific about history. When so-and-so was the governor here and so-and-so was the tetrarch there. Very specific historical references. When all of those characters, the politicians of Jesus' day, when all of them were in place, the word of God came to John the Baptist in the desert, another concrete place, the Negev desert. One way to get there is to take the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, where the Good Samaritan helped the one who had been beaten. That road from Jerusalem to Jericho is named the Ma'ale Adumim, the going up of blood, because it's so hot there from the desert that the stones turn red in the hot season from the desert heat. And there was a town also called Ma'ale Adumim, and that town was in the news this morning because it's part of the area where the Jewish government announced that they will build new settlements. So nothing could be more concrete than the Word of God coming to Jesus in the desert at a particular time when various governing people, when various civil leaders were in office. There's a time and there's a very specific place. And as we wait for Christ to come again in his glory, as we wait for the kingdom, we look toward the kingdom. We look toward the east. And that looking toward the east is essential to our Christian life. Because waiting for heaven, realizing that Judgment Day will come, is essential to our Christian faith. So we have to be people who concretely, physically look to the east. Now, clearly that doesn't mean nobody can go to work or school tomorrow, because we're going to spend the day looking toward the east. Doesn't mean that. Our opportunity, our great opportunity to look toward the east is right here at the liturgy. Pope Benedict says over and over again that to look toward the east means to turn toward the Lord. And that's why it's so important to have the crucifix front and center, both for the priests and for the people. Because during Mass, I'm supposed to be looking toward the east, toward heaven. I'm not supposed to be trying to entertain you or hold your attention in some way. I'm supposed to be looking toward the east. So it's good that the crucifix is right there so that I cannot see the people clearly, nor can they see me clearly. They're not looking at me, the priests, they're looking at Jesus Christ, the high priest, toward the east. The crucifix on the altar, a big one, is not an obstruction. It's there to help us live the very basics of our faith in terms of Advent, which means looking toward the east. Looking toward the east is turning toward the Lord. And when we look at the crucifix, you from your side, I from my side, we're all turned toward the Lord. And I'm sure that the day will come when we will turn toward the Lord together in even a more full way, when we all face east, when we all turn toward the Lord in the same direction. And when we do that, that's not the priest turning his back on the people. That's the priest directing the people to look toward the east, to obey the prophetic word, to believe how concrete, real, physical, and visible Jesus Christ was and is, how real, concrete, physical, and visible is the last coming from the east. The east matters. It matters a lot. That's indeed why the Creator gave us the sunrise from the east every day to remind us that from there comes the light, who is Christ. As we behold the flesh and blood of Christ in the sacramental sign of the Eucharist, we are turned toward the east as Jesus comes to us here in mystery to remind ourselves that our whole life is an eager, prayerful waiting for him to come in majesty, waiting for him to come from the east, turning toward the Lord. Advent is in December, but Advent is 365 days a year of waiting for the Lord, turning toward the east, turning toward the Lord. Let's remember that when we're at Mass. Because then and only then will our flesh see the flesh of Jesus Christ glorified. And when we see the flesh of Christ glorified in the Eucharist, then we see, in anticipation of the great day when the Lord comes from the east, then we see right here and now the salvation of our God. Praise be Jesus Christ.